Molly didn't have a normal childhood. She was forged through brutal training under a dominant father. Her dad was a high-level psychology professor who demanded nothing less than absolute perfection. Despite a serious spine condition and undergoing painful surgeries, he pushed her limits every single day. He wanted her to become a world-class skier, a champion who would eventually take home the gold. Fast forward to 2002. Molly is finally at the Olympic qualifiers, flying down the slopes with total confidence. She was in the zone. Every move was calculated, and a gold medal score was right within her reach. She felt the wind on her face, knowing that this was the moment she had worked her whole life for. But in a split second, fate decided to take a turn when she hit a tiny frozen branch hidden on the track. That small obstacle sent her spiraling into the air, leading to a horrific and violent crash. The impact was so severe it shattered her old spinal injury, leaving her knocked out cold on the snow. Just like that, her professional athletic career and her lifelong Olympic dreams were dead on arrival. 12 years later, we find Molly in a quiet room, her life completely transformed from those snowy peaks. Suddenly, the silence is broken by a heavy knock. The FBI is at her door with a warrant for her arrest. This is the moment her secret, high-stakes life finally comes crashing down in front of the whole world. To understand how she became the poker princess, we have to go back to where it all began. After the skiing accident, she skipped law school and headed for the bright lights of Los Angeles. She was broke, starting from scratch as a waitress, when she crossed paths with a mogul named Dean. Dean was a man who appreciated a sharp hustle, and he quickly hired her as his personal assistant. But working for Dean was a total nightmare. He would scream at her over the smallest mistakes. Molly, however, was way smarter than Dean expected. She was brilliant, organized, and learned fast. One night, Dean tells her to help him run a secret, high-stakes poker game at the famous Cobra Lounge. The room was packed with A-list actors, Wall Street sharks, and billionaires who had money to burn. The buy-in was a cool $10,000, an amount Molly couldn't even imagine having at the time. Molly didn't know a thing about poker, so she spent hours Googling every term and rule to keep up. As she handled the players and the drinks, she started observing the deep psychology behind every bet. She realized these rich guys weren't just playing for money, they were playing for ego and dominance. She quickly figured out that the tips in this room were worth way more than any regular salary. After making over $3,000 in just one night, she was officially hooked on this world. Dean tried to keep her in the shadows, constantly warning her to stay quiet about their secret operation. But Molly was too good. She knew every player's favorite drink and their specific weaknesses. She created an environment where they felt like kings, making them want to come back every single week. Jealous of her growing influence, Dean fired her in a fit of rage and insecurity. But that was his biggest mistake, because Molly decided to take her contacts and start her own game. She invested every penny of her savings to level up the experience with luxury suites and rare liquors. Soon, she was the undisputed queen of the most elite poker games, and everyone wanted a seat at her table. She kept it strictly legal at first, never taking a cut of the pot and living solely off the tips. But then came Player X, a famous celebrity who didn't just want to win, he wanted to destroy people. Things got dark when a regular player named Harlan lost over $100,000 in one night. Molly tried to protect her players, but Player X manipulated the game to bleed Harlan completely dry. Player X stole her entire player list, and Molly's lay empire crumbled almost overnight. But Molly Bloom doesn't quit. She packed her bags and moved to New York City to start over again. She set up shop at the legendary Plaza Hotel, hosting Wall Street sharks and the global elite. The stakes in New York were even higher, with millions of dollars moving across the table every night. Under the crushing pressure, she started spiraling into a world of drugs and exhaustion to stay awake. Her judgment started to cloud, and she made a choice that would change her life forever. When several players couldn't pay their massive debts, Molly was forced to cover the losses herself. To protect her business, she finally crossed the line and started taking a rake from the poker pots. That one decision turned her legitimate hosting business into a full-blown illegal gambling operation. Soon, the Italian mafia tried to muscle in on her game, demanding a piece of the massive profits. When she refused to cooperate, she was brutally beaten in her own home as a terrifying warning. But the mafia was the least of her problems, as the FBI was already building a case against her. When one of her regular players was caught in a Ponzi scheme, he flipped on her to save his own skin. The FBI moved in, raiding her games and seizing every single dollar she had worked so hard to save. Stripped of her wealth, she moved back in with her mother and decided to write a memoir. She told her story to the world while protecting the players' secrets, refusing to name names. Even when she was broke, her integrity remained the one thing she wasn't willing to sell. But the law wasn't done, as she was arrested again for her ties to the Russian mob and laundering. Molly was facing years in prison, and she needed a miracle to stay out of a cold jail cell. She hired Charlie, a high-powered lawyer who realized Molly was a woman of rare stubborn integrity. The government offered her a deal: give up the names and the hard drives and she walks free. But Molly refused the deal, unwilling to destroy hundreds of families just to save her own skin. She believed that her name and her word were the only things she truly owned in this world. If she betrayed her players, she would lose her soul, and that was a price she wouldn't pay. In a dramatic court scene, Charlie made a powerful stand for Molly, defending her character. He argued that while she broke the law, she was a person of honor compared to the real criminals. The judge looked at Molly, seeing a woman who had been through hell but refused to be broken. Seeing her honor, he gave her community service and a fine instead of a long prison sentence. Molly Bloom walked out of that courtroom as a free woman, with her head held high. She had lost her millions and her empire, but she kept the one thing she refused to sell: her name. Her journey from a world-class athlete to a poker queen is a legendary story for the ages. It's a story about the cost of ambition and the incredible power of never compromising who you are. Molly proved that even when you lose everything, you can still win if you don't lose yourself. Success isn't just about the money in your bank. It is about the strength of your spirit. Thank you so much for joining me for this incredible recap of Molly's Game. If you enjoyed this story of power and integrity, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. We bring you the best movie breakdowns and true stories every single week right here. Let us know in the comments what you think of Molly's decision to stay silent for her players. Would you have taken the deal, or would you have protected your name just like she did? I'll see you in the next one for another epic movie recap.